Okay, the process management. So this is managing the processes, the programs that come in for execution and start executing. Now, we assume we are okay with the processor, but programs will need a lot of resources, not just the processor. So this is making sure that processes, when they interact together, they still work. And therefore, we require the processor, the process management. So, and when the processes work together, they found that in many systems, they start having something called deadlocks. So we'll look at deadlocks today and how they happen and what causes them and how do we recognize them, what they are first, what the deadlock is, and how do we get rid of it? Or how do we prevent it in a system? And a deadlock is just a number of processes that get entangled together. Sometimes they call it the deadly embrace, like they hang on to one another, processes, through the resources they need. And there are a number of things first you need to know. Just once you know them, things will look a lot easier. One of the things you need to know is that if our resources are shareable, then we will never have a deadlock. If all our resources are shareable. Every resource is either dedicated or shareable. Anybody knows what the difference between a dedicated resource and a shareable resource? You know what a dedicated resource is? It can be only used by one user. You know what a dedicated resource is? Oh, thank you. Shukriya. I know you're used by one user at one time. But once the user finished, another user can use it. That's a dedicated resource. Who was trying to answer dedicated resource? What about the shareable resource? Another question.
Same resource can be used by different program at the same time.
By multiple users simultaneously. Yeah, thank you very much. So a shareable resource is a resource that can be used by many users at the same time without any problem. If all our resources are shareable resources, then there will never be a deadlock. Anytime you want to use a resource, come and use it. So share. You know, everybody's doing the same thing, and there'll be no problem. But unfortunately, that's not the case all the time. Most of the time, resources cannot be shared. So that's one fact. The other fact is if your program or if any user needs a resource, and if that resource is busy, is being used by someone else, what happens? This coming user has to sit and wait. And in operating systems, the best way to wait, you don't just keep asking, you don't keep looking at the resource and say, is it free yet? Is it free yet? Is it free? We don't do that. Because if you do that, you need to run a few instructions. You need the CPU to do that. And that's not a good way, efficient way of waiting. That's an expensive way of waiting. It's like you go to pick your friend, right? You drive a car, you come to your friend and say, listen, you gonna be ready? Yeah, all right, 8 o'clock. You park outside the house and you're waiting for your friend to descend from the second floor. And the engine is running in your car and you spend half an hour or an hour. In Ireland, petrol is very expensive. Maybe in most countries, it's very expensive. So you start burning petrol when you are sitting in your place in the car. You're not moving. That's a very expensive way of waiting. What's a better way to wait? Turn the engine off and go to sleep. You even save energy. You don't even waste any more energy. So in operating systems, it's the same. if you want a printer, and if you go into a loop, then you say, is the printer free, is the printer free? You go around 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times. Each time you want to check the printer is free or not, you have to get the CPU to run. So you are actually using the CPU. That's not a good way. They call that a busy wait. Like you're waiting, doing nothing, but you're busy. You're using the CPU. That's an expensive way of waiting. So never do a busy wait. In the future, if you write any programs, don't ever put a loop and you say, okay, check the printer, is it free? Or check the phone line, is it there? Or check the variable I. Does it have the value 0 or not? It has the value 2, for example. You keep checking and checking and checking and checking. You're waiting for it to go 0, but you're using the CPU. The best way is to tell the operating system, listen, I'm going to go to sleep. That's what happens. And when that I becomes 0, wake me up. So you don't waste, you don't use any CPU. Whenever that variable becomes 0, the operating system wakes you up. And the same, so this is the best way to wait for anything. But now, so you know now how to wait, to go to sleep. In fact, the operating system will put you asleep. All operating systems almost work this way now. But don't forget the other fact. The first fact is that some resources cannot be shared. They're dedicated resources. That means you cannot use them. If another user is using them and you come approach it to use it, then you cannot. You have to wait. If you attempt to use it while it's being used, you cause problems. Well, that's the first thing. And the second thing is that if you find a resource busy, if you need a resource, if it's free, go ahead and use it. But if it's busy, you must wait. And wait, not in a busy wait. So once you have those two facts, then we can continue with the deadlock topic. Now, deadlock can happen in so many situations, and this is just one of them. Imagine on crossroads. Anytime you approach a crossroad, if that part of the crossroad, hold on, let me get this thing maybe. Doesn't matter. Okay, so if you approach a crossroad and you need, for example, this crossroad here, the car wants to move forward, but that area in the crossroad is occupied by another car. It cannot move in. This space at the crossroad where the two roads cross, it's a dedicated space. It's not shareable space. If both cars want to be exactly at the same spot, both of them at the same time, they'll have a collision. So one of them has to stop until the space becomes available. And only when this van here moves forward, then the space becomes available. This one can move forward. But for now, it cannot move, and therefore the car behind it cannot move, and the one behind it cannot move, and the one behind it as well. They're in the same row. And therefore this car cannot move forward because the space it needs is also busy. And the one behind it is also blocked and all that. So in this case, as you can see here, there's a circular wait. And if you get to a point of circular wait, it's very hard to get out of it. So a deadlock really is a set of processes. A number of processes are in a deadlock. If each process in the set, like those cars, every car in that set is waiting for an event. waiting for something to happen. But that event can only be made available by another process in the same set. That space that car is going to leave, it cannot move because it needs a space in front of it that has to be made available by the other car in front of it. The other car is also deadlocked. So everybody is in a situation where they cannot move. Here's a little bit closer situation of a deadlock. Everybody wants to move forward, those 4 cars in the middle. Each one of them wants the space in front of it, but the space in front of it is used by another user. And that user cannot move or cannot leave that space until it moves forward. But it cannot move forward because the space it needs is occupied by another car. And therefore, and here they are, those 4 here are in a circular lock or a deadlock, in a circular wait. Each one of them is waiting for the other. Maybe the only way to do it, instead of moving forward, maybe in this particular example, this car cannot even move forward or backward. This is the only van that maybe there's a bit of room for it to move back and it can release this. So if we move this van, maybe we break that lock. Otherwise, these cars will never move and they block everybody. Deadlocks can happen on files in our computer systems. If you want to read from a file or write to a file, and you have that file and you start writing, another process comes in, wants to write to the same file, they have to sit and wait. And then you can have that waiting going around in circles between multiple different files and multiple different processes. Same with databases, if you've been programming on databases. Same with any dedicated device, like a printer. If you have a printer, you're printing a file, another process comes in to use the printer, it has to go to sleep, wait. And then you might end up having a sequence of waits for the same printer or multiple printers. Spooling, I'll talk about spooling in a little while. That's simultaneous printing. So sometimes we can make the printer, we can all print on the printer at the same time. You might say, how? Well, how could you print on the printer at the same time? And disk sharing, that's again, if you try to write information to a hard disk, now another one try to write the same information to the same hard disk, it's a problem. So here's another approach, just to make it a little bit clearer. By what we mean by a deadlock. This is the kitchen we have. Imagine, this is our kitchen. And we share this kitchen. But all the tools in this kitchen are dedicated, right? You might be living with somebody in a house, and there's only one kitchen in the house. And the tools in the kitchen are dedicated resources. That means they cannot be shared. No 2 people can, for example, hold this and start using it for chopping vegetable or whatever it is, or use the same cheese, grinding cheese, until one person finishes with it. There's another term I want you to start remembering. It's called mutual exclusive. Mutually exclusive device, what does that mean? That means it can only be used by one person. It's exclusive to you. That means for that moment in time, it's only for your use. I mean, you can say this device is now mutually exclusive for me, and then someone else can use it once you're finished. So a mutually exclusive device is a dedicated device. Or a dedicated device is a mutually exclusive device, cannot be shared by more than one user at any given time. Right. Now, in this kitchen, let's go and fry some eggs. Right? Everybody knows how to fry an egg? Great. What tools do you need to fry an egg? So simple. The tools you need, this tool is holding in the right hand and the tool is holding in the left hand. So we have a frying pan and a spatula. So these are the only two tools you need. If you have them, you're gonna fry your egg and eat it. And if you don't have them, you're gonna starve. You're gonna wait, basically. If there's only one user, there'll be no problem. But if there are 2 or 3 users in the house, whoever gets in there first might be able to get start, frying. Now, these are the list of tools in the kitchen. You walk in the kitchen and you start looking, where are my tools? What tools do I need? And there's, you need tool number 2 and tool number 4. These are the 2 tools required to fry your egg. Now, 2 people walk into the kitchen. Of course, there could be more, but these are like processes going into a computer system. One needs a file, one needs a printer, one needs a hard disk, and these tools are not shareable. They are mutually exclusive devices. Now, they both recognize, they both say, I need that tool and I need that tool. They both need those 2 tools, and they cannot finish frying that egg without those 2 tools. So imagine if they both walk in, one of them reaches for the frying pan, the other one reaches for the spatula. Now this guy here needs the frying pan. She has the frying pan. She needs the spatula. She doesn't have it, he has it. Now, if the rules say, if you need a device or a resource and it's not available, wait for it. The guy, whoever is using it, sooner or later they'll finish. So they'll go into waiting state. So this guy goes in a wait, sits in the kitchen, maybe even outside the kitchen, waits for the frying pan, and she has the frying pan, but she needs the spatula and sits waiting for the spatula. There's only one spatula, one frying pan, and those 2 devices cannot be shared, and therefore none of them, and both devices are required to fry the egg, so none of them will finish frying the egg, and both of them will sit waiting. And then both of them will end up starving and maybe end up dead because they don't eat. And that's why we call this a deadlock. And it's a lock that they never come out of, because unless somebody outside the system, but not from those 2, not from within the deadlock, these guys will never get out of this deadlock. These are the rules of a deadlock. The rules are, you have some tool and you need another tool. This is the minimum amount. You have one and you need another one. The other one, the other tool or resource is not available. It's with someone else. So you go in a waiting state. That's how a deadlock starts, because that tool is not shareable. And if someone else is using it, you have to go sleep. You have to wait for it. The fact that you go in waiting, then that's the start of a deadlock, maybe the start of a deadlock. Now, that guy, if every process in the system, and now here we only have 2, if every process has one tool more, and it needs another tool or more, and they're not available, and it goes in a waiting state, and if one of them is waiting on the other, even if there are 5 or 6 of them, one is waiting on the other, one waiting on the other, and it always comes back. And they call this circular wait. If we get a circular wait, then that's a deadlock. So a deadlock needs a number of things. First, the tools are mutually exclusive. What's a mutually exclusive tool? What does it mean? Dedicated to one? No. What's a mutual?
Only usable for one.
Can only be used by one user, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Wrong answer. What's a mutually exclusive tool?
No, it's a resource that can be used by
One user.
that's the
Huh?
that can be used by user.
At one time.
Yeah, I was.
Oh yeah, I know you were gonna say that. But now I know, hopefully in the exam you will remember it, right? So, if the tools are mutually exclusive, and if each one of them has some tool and needs another, and they have to go in a wait, and if that wait becomes circular, then we have a deadlock. And that deadlock, they'll never come out of it unless somebody outside the system comes and brings in another tool, or, you know, take one of them out and take the tool out of them. What do we call that kind of system? If you come up and you force, and you say, excuse me, you're not eating today, I'm taking that pan from you. What kind of system that allows you to do that? Yeah. It's called a preemptive system. So if we allow preemptiveness, then we will not have a deadlock. So if we have somebody like an operating system say, excuse me, I'm taking that pan from you, I'll give it to him. Or take the spatula from him, give it to her. Then one of them will finish and the next one can work after that. So if our system are preemptive, then, hey, we can solve deadlocks. We'll never have deadlocks. But of course, we can't. Not all systems are preemptive. You can't, somebody start printing a letter and halfway through the page, you say, excuse me, I'm taking the printer from you, I'm giving it to another one to print their own letter. And there'll be a page with two, you know, mixed letters on them. So not all tools are, you know, not all systems will allow preemptiveness. So if our system is a non-preemptive, for some reason, non-preemptive, that means we cannot take away a tool from you and give it to someone else, then we're going to have a deadlock. So some systems can have a deadlock, but there are conditions. If they are available, then we will definitely have a deadlock. And if we can remove one of those systems, then we can save the day. So this is what we'll be looking at instead of shapes and all that, but this is the diagram we'll be following. Our diagram is so simple, it only has 3 symbols. You need to remember them. A circle to indicate a user, a process. If I tell you a system has 3 processes, you draw 3 circles. And we have squares or boxes or rectangles, and they represent resources, whatever the resources are. It could be a printer, we just for now we call them resource 1, resource 2. You might need a file and a printer to read from a file and write to the printer. And we have arrows. Now the arrow, it's so important, where does it start and where is it aiming at? If it starts at a user, like you, and it's pointing at something, that means I want that. So if a user is pointing at a printer, that means they don't have the printer, they want that printer. We call it a request. And if we have a resource that's pointing at a user, like the printer is pointing to that person, that means this resource is allocated. We gave this resource to that user. These are the only simple rules to draw a diagram. Okay, so if the arrow is going from, say, if we have a hard disk here or a file and it's pointing to process, I mean, that process has this file. This file is allocated to that process. And when you read it, or when I read it, we should start at the tail of the arrow, call this is resource 1 allocated to process 1. If we are reading this here, this relationship between process 2 and resource 1, we start at the tail of the arrow and say process 2 requests resource 1. So if a user is pointing at a device, that means they are requesting that device. If the device is pointing to the user, that means this device is allocated to that user. So these are the terminologies we'll use. Is that good enough? Now, locking was used a while back. To lock something, a device, I mean, it's a technique that's used through which it locks. The simplest way they started having locks, because someone else started writing a program, they want a printer, they start sending their information to the printer. So in order to make sure that the printer does not get allocated to someone else is allowed to use it, they started using a locking technique. Basically, just put a switch on it, on or off. 1 or 0. If it's 1, that means, hey, it's being busy, somebody is using it. It's like a room, if they use it in studios, with a light in front of the door. So if they're recording, they don't want any noise, they put the light on, don't even go in. And if it's okay to go in, they switch the light off, you can go in. So that's what a lock is. A lock is just a bit, 1 or 0. For example, it can mean 1 means lock, you cannot use, and 0 means use. If you want to write to a file, you must not write to a file if another person is writing to the same file. You're going to ruin the file. If 2 processes write to the same file, they're going to ruin it. So they started using this lock technique. So you look at this locking technique. They had a problem in the old days, and it was not due to locking. Even though, you know, even when we used locking, they still had a problem. And the problem is something like this. They called it the race problem. The race, that means running a race. Whoever gets there first. Well, that's the race problem. So the race problem is like this. This is an example, a very good example. Imagine, just imagine if you had 1,000 euros in the bank, right? And you had 2 more thousands, 1,000 each. You're going to add them into your account. So you had 1,000, and you're going to add 1,000, and you're going to add another 1,000. Maybe somebody gave you a check, and you have cash, and you want to go both to the bank. You put the check is going through, and you walk to the bank, and you say, I have 1,000 euro, I want to put it in my account. At the end, I should have 3,000. That's the norm. They found sometimes they have a problem, and that's the one they call the race problem. Because if you write a program, this is the way it normally works. There's a logic. The logic maybe is not 100% right. So imagine this. This is just an example, but it's a good example to explain the race problem. Imagine this is your bank account, this is time. Time going from top to bottom here. Your bank account has 1,000 euros. You go to the bank. There are 2 workers at the bank. One is at the cashier, and you are standing at the cashier with 1,000 euro. At the same time, your friend or your parents or your family, somebody sent you a check. And somebody sitting in the bank, and they're actually processing that check right now. They're going to put 1,000 euro into your account. And you, at the same time, at the cashier, you have 1,000 euro, you want to pay it. This is the problem when you do transactions exactly at the same time, even though there's no deadlock here. Now, so they're both actions, both programs, sometimes the same copy of the same program, they start running simultaneously. And all you have to do is put money into the same account. The way we do it, when you write a program, for example, you ask the user, how much do you want to add? And they say, I want to add 1,000. You can't just write it to your account. What you do is say, open that file, read how much is in right now in the balance. And let's say the balance is 1,000. Okay, add to it another 1,000, but write out 2,000 in the balance. Well, that's exactly how would you do it. Anytime you want to update some value, you need to know what that value is and how much you want to add to it, and then you write the new value. So both programs will work and say, get me the balance. How much is now the existing value, the balance? So they both send requests at the same time. Of course, there may be the operating system, one of them would be 1/1,000,000th of a second before the other one. If they both arrive at the same time, they'll join a queue. It will help them one at a time. But there's very little difference between them. There's no deadlock. There's no issue. So the operating system reads 1,000, sent it to that guy, and 1,000 to this guy. So this guy gets the number first. So it says, oh, we have 1,000, and then I'm going to add another 1,000 to it. The new total should be 2,000. Please write 2,000 to my account, to this account. This guy also sent a request, got the answer. There's 1,000 there. Say, okay, 1,000. Add another 1,000 to it. Write, and then, so 1 + 1 is 2. Write 2,000. So this guy writes 2,000 to the account immediately. 1 millionth of a second later, this guy also says, write the new balance, 2,000. So at the last one, this 2,000 overwrites this 2,000. So at the end, you end up with your account 2,000. You're missing €1,000. And they call this the race problem. Of course, there's something wrong, they say. What's wrong here is that they both came in, and this guy they both started the process of changing, but they first asked, what's that value, add to it, and close. The solution to this, they said, if somebody says, listen, I'm going to change the value of this balance for this person. What's the balance now? The moment they come in, they intend to change, well then lock this account. Nobody else can make it, not even a query, not even ask. If we block whoever comes in first, one of them is going to be in there 1 millionth of a second before the other. Even if they come in at the same time, we have to put them into a queue. One of them is going to be first. So for example, this guy came in first. They say use a lock. A lock means there was a 0 here, there's a light off, turn the red light on. I mean, hey, this account is locked. So now this guy gets the account, you have to give them 1,000. This guy says, how much is in this account? He says, no, wait, we can't tell you yet. This account is locked. This guy finishes, writes 2,000 and turn off the light. Then now the operating system, oh, the light is off now, and now we can deal with you. And the balance now is 2,000, and then they can sort it out by sending another 1,000 to it. So if you're asked to describe the race problem, any example like this will do, where you say, right, there's a balance in a file, the easiest way to do it on a file. If there's a file and two processes want to change it at the same time, of course, they can't write exactly at the same moment of time, but we don't lock it. There is no locking mechanism. So one says, how much is there? The other one says, how much is there? It's 1,000, it's 1,000. This guy says, oh, write 2,000. And this guy says, write 2,000 over the other one, and we end up with the wrong balance at the end. This is called the race problem. How to solve the race problem? They introduced something called locks. I mean, if you want to work on a file or a record sometimes, put a lock on it. So if another user comes in, they want to inquire about this record, sorry, they won't even know. You hold it for a few millionths of a second. This guy finishes writing, now we can start dealing with the next request. So that way we'll never have an error. Your money will be safe in this bank if the programmer done it right. Okay, so this is called the race problem, and to solve it, we use the lock problems. And the problem can happen with many devices, but this is the clearest one. It can happen with printers, with plotters, so you should, actually, operating systems do lock some systems, but it's very clear on databases because there's a lot of transactions on databases and all that. Is our timekeeper still keeping an eye on the time? Thank you. Okay, so here's another deadlock situation. Imagine this guy needs a printer. The printer is a mutually exclusive device. That means only one user. But the printer is already allocated to another user. That means this guy cannot use it. And what does the first user do? Has to wait. So this guy goes asleep, waiting on the printer. But the printer is with this user who needs a plotter. But the plotter is not available, it's with another user. So what does user number 2 do? Go to sleep, waiting for the plotter. And the plotter is with this user, but this user needs the tape drive or the hard disk. Wants to open a file and maybe plot it. But that tape drive is with the first user. So this guy goes to sleep. So this guy went to sleep waiting on the tape drive. This guy went to sleep waiting on the plotter, and this guy went to sleep waiting on the printer. Do you think they'll ever come out of this? No. The three of them are waiting on something that can only be done by one of them, and the three of them are asleep. They'll never do what whatever it is they want to do. This guy needs the flutter. That guy will never release the flutter because it's sleep. And it needs the flutter anyway, and it's waiting on something else that's with another sleeping process. So this is what we call a deadlock. But in order for a deadlock to happen, let me go to this first. In order for a deadlock to happen, there are 4 conditions that must be there. The 4 of them must be there, like and between them, logical and. Condition A and condition B and condition C and condition D. The 4 of them must be available in a system, or else there'll be no deadlock. If we can remove one of them, there'll be no deadlock. So, and this goes on the same guys that were frying the egg, earlier on. You need to think of them logically, but you need to remember them. There's always a question, what are the 4 conditions required for a deadlock to take place? First thing, mutual exclusive devices. If the devices that we have in our system mutual exclusive, that means that's your first condition. If the devices we have are shared devices, we will never have a deadlock. Remember, each one of those conditions, if it's the only condition that's not there, then we will never have a deadlock. So for now, if all our systems are shareable device, you should know immediately there will be no deadlock. If we can all use the same resources, the devices, anytime, doesn't matter who's using it, you can still use it. That means you'll never go to sleep, you'll never wake, there will never be a deadlock. A deadlock happens because you want a resource, it's not available, you go to sleep. And the other one sleep, everybody's asleep. But if the resource is not mutually exclusive, that means if you can share it, you'll never have to stop. But now, because it's mutually exclusive, that means it's a dedicated device. Right? So mutually exclusive device is a dedicated device. So that's your first condition. If we say, what will cause a deadlock to happen? So first thing, if we cannot share those resources. But the good word to say, if the resources are mutually exclusive. Now, the second thing, if resource holding is used in the system, what does that mean? For example, we need 2 things to do. For example, the frying pan guys. We need 2 resources. So one of them went and got the frying pan, now need the spatula. The spatula is busy. If this guy says, okay, I'll sit and wait, while holding the frying pan, this is called hold and wait, or resource holding. If you are allowed to go in a waiting state, sleeping, holding one of the resources, that's the second condition. In some systems, they say to you, you can't hold a resource if you want to. You need 2 resources, you reach for 1. But now you have 1. You need the second one. It's not available. You're going to go to wait? No, before you wait, release the resource that you have. You're not allowed to go sleeping while holding another resource. If we can implement that in our system, that means there will be no deadlocks. If we say in our system you must release every resource, if you cannot use it now, that means the other users will use it and they'll finish. But if the condition is called hold and wait or resource holding, or sometimes they call it hold and wait, which is a little bit clearer. That means you hold a resource, you want another one. It's not available, you go and wait. You wait while holding the first resource. This is really dangerous. This is getting closer to a deadlock. So first, resources are dedicated. That's the first condition, mutually exclusive. Second one, you're allowed to hold one resource, you need another one. If the other one is not available, you can go sleep waiting and holding the first resource. If that's allowed, then we're getting very close. That's what happened with the frying pan. Remember the frying the egg? One of them had the pan and started holding the pan, and the other one had the spatula. So that got closer to a deadlock. The next one is no preemption or non-preemption. If in our system, we say our system is non-preemptive system, or non-preemption. What does non-preemption mean? Our system is non-preemptive system. What does it mean? Okay. A process cannot be interrupted and we cannot take a resource from that process. That's called non-preemptive. A preemptive, that means you can stop a process and take away the resource and give it to another one. We need to remember those things. So the next condition is that in our system, we are not allowed to take the resource. Remember earlier on with the two guys trying to fry the egg. One of them has the frying pan, the other has the spatula. If we were able to take away the frying pan from one of them and give it to the other who has the spatula, then they finish. The first one will finish, and they'll release the two resources, and then the second one will finish, one after the other, and we will not have a deadlock. But we are not allowed to do that, and that means that's closer to a deadlock. So that's the word non-preemption or non-preemptiveness. So if our system does not allow us to take the resource away and interrupt a process, take the resource from it, then that's even getting closer to a deadlock. So far, those three conditions. The resources are mutually exclusive, that means cannot be shared. And if one of them is busy, you have to wait. But if you are allowed to wait while holding another resource, that's your second problem. And our third problem, we cannot take away any resource from anybody. Now, the final straw that will actually cause the deadlock, if this waiting, remember, one is waiting on the next, one is waiting on the next. We have a sequence. But if that sequence go back to the first one and forms a circular, we call it a circular wait. If we follow the waiting, we find a circle, then that's called a circular wait, and that's a deadlock. And these are the four conditions. Like sometimes you could have mutual resources that cannot be shared, and people are holding resources and asleep, and we cannot take the resources from them, but we did not form a circular wait. So eventually, the first one will finish, will release, then the second one will finish, then the third one. But if we have a circle, then that's it. That's a definite deadlock. So this is the last and fourth condition. You need to remember those conditions. I want you to remember one of them. Just think of one of these conditions and never forget it. Which condition of the deadlock you will remember? The circular wait. Give me another one. What condition? The mutual exclusive devices. What does that mean?
Means that less than one used by one user.
Yeah, that means resources cannot be shared by users at the same time. Give me the third condition. One condition you'll remember. One condition you will not forget of those. Mutually exclusive is gone. The circular wait is gone. Resource holding, what does that mean? Explain resource holding to me in the deadlock situation.
Only when waiting for the other resource flow.
Yeah. Okay, guys, sometimes you're asked to explain mutual. What's mutual exclusion? Mutual exclusion, that means the devices cannot be shared, can only be used by one user at any given time. What does resource holding mean? You just explained it. If you have a resource, you need another one. If the second one is not available, you go waiting while holding the first resource. That's called resource holding. Or sometimes it's called hold and wait. Now the next one, non-preemption. What does this mean? And what does non-preemption mean?
So in the process, you won't go from the
Like circle. Yeah. What's non-preemption mean?
The system cannot interrupt the process and take resources.
And take the resource away. It's the taking away of the resource, the important bit. So non-preemption means we don't interrupt any of the processes and then take away a resource and maybe give it to another one. We're not allowed to do that. Okay, so we need to, like if you are asked to explain it, that should be the easiest part. Circular weight. Anybody can explain circular weight? Who picked circular weight here? That's you, wasn't it? Yeah, you were high. I'd be looking at you. Who picked circular weight? Was it you? Come on, you. What's circular weight that you were saying?
It's like just one device is waiting for the resources, then just keep going on and make it circle.
Okay. Right. So the last user is waiting on the first one. If we, not necessarily the last and first. They put as long as we have a circle. Okay. And here they are. Here are the explanations. You can read them at your own time. Now, how can we get rid of one of these resources? Remember, in order for a deadlock to happen, you need those 4 resources to happen. Not one of them, not one of the resources of 2, 4 of them. Resource number 1 and resource number 2 and 3 and 4. That means if one of them is not available, we're not going to have a deadlock. We'll never have a deadlock. So let's get rid of one of them. I'm going to look at the mutual exclusion. How can we make a device that's normally mutual exclusion, mutual exclusive device, how can we make it shareable? Which is kind of odd, it's strange. A printer is by its nature, it's a dedicated device. It's a mutually exclusive device. Or a plotter, you draw in a diagram for a map or for some design of some device or machine, and then you get another one to draw on it. It just doesn't work. But they found a way. As you know, the last 50 years they've been just finding tricks to make computers work as they do today. So how did they make a printer shareable? Now first, they have to introduce another definition that you need to know about it. Now, you know what a dedicated device is, right? Can you remind us? What's a dedicated device? Only one user can use that device or that resource at any moment, right? When they finish, another user can use it. That's a dedicated device. What's a shareable device? Yeah, perfect. Now they introduced another device, and they called it the virtual device. That means virtually shareable device. What's virtual? Anybody knows what virtual generally means? Like when we say virtual reality, it's almost like, yeah, like virtual memory. It's not really memory, but also with virtual devices, they turn the printer from a dedicated device into a virtual device. So now the printer appears to be shareable, even though by nature it's not shareable. So how did they do that? They said, fine, this is the way they've done it. They said, if you have a device, a printer, and usually every machine can send a request to the printer to print, and the operating system says, no, it's busy, you can't print, you have to wait. But they put in memory the stuff that you want to print. For example, a printer is printed away, right? And then you as a user, you say, I want to print. Usually you'll be delayed until your job is done. But if we hold on to it and wait until the other one's finished, your process cannot move any further. So what they've done, they said, right, let's take that stuff from you. What do you want to print? The printer is free. Send us the stuff to print. And when you send it, they don't send it to the printer, they put it in memory. You think it's gone to the printer, but in reality, it did not go to the printer. But they keep it in the same format in memory. And when the printer finishes later on, they send it to it at their own printer time. But the important part is that you sent in, the printer is busy, and we told you, yeah, you can print, send us the data. You send us the data, we hold on to it in buffer, in memory. And you finish, and you go, knowing that you've done all your printing. In fact, we didn't print it yet, but we told you it's printed, right? So it's like you think it got printed, so at least you don't get delayed. You go and finish your processing. But we hold on to your material for printing in memory, in a queue. All the pages you want to print are all sitting in one little box here that belongs to you. And every other program that says, I want to use the printer, 10 programs come in and say, can we print? Say, yeah, give us what you want to print. It's printed, and you go. In fact, it's not printed. We hold on to your printed material in memory. And when the printer is free, we'll send it, because the printer is definitely a dedicated device. But to you, it looks like it's shareable now. And we keep sending the stuff to the printer. We'll print it later. But you were not delayed. You did not have to sit and wait. Remember, when you find normally a device is busy, what happens? You go to sleep. But we did not put you to sleep. Give us the material to print, and we say, print it, go. So you never had to wait. It's like this device was shareable. To you, it looked like it was shareable. In fact, in reality, it's a dedicated device, but this is now what we call a virtual device. And this is the trick they use. So, and they call this spooling, this idea that only relates to printers, they call it spooling. And it stands for simultaneous printing online or operations online. Well, that's what the word spooling stands for. But in fact, it's printing online. That means you don't have to wait on printing. So if in your system, if in our operating system, we have a spooler, that means it's going to take any request to print, and it will print it on a single printer, maybe more than a single printer, but the printer is dedicated, but it will appear like it's a shareable device. So the idea of spooling is one example of how can we make the system believe this dedicated device is no longer dedicated, it's no longer mutually exclusive. It's like we have removed this condition. If we can do this with every device that we have, then we will break a deadlock. We'll never have a deadlock. So, guys, in order to have a deadlock, remember this, you must have 4 conditions. If we can, and the question is, how can we prevent? How can we make sure we never have a deadlock? Simple. For a deadlock to happen, we need those 4. If we can eliminate one of those 4, then we will never have a deadlock. And this is just one idea of how to eliminate the mutual exclusiveness for a device. But this is only for one device. Of course, in a system, we should have all our devices mutually, not mutually exclusive. All the devices should be shareable or at least virtual. What's the difference between a virtual device and a shareable device? A shareable device by its nature is shareable. Like this room, we can all share it. That's its nature. But there are some devices that are not shareable, like an ATM machine. You go in and you put your card. You can't put 3 cards together in an ATM machine. So if it's busy, you have to wait. But if you can make it appear as if it's shareable, then that's what we call mutual device. Virtual device. Thank you. That's why I was just doing it on purpose to see if you'd. So you can read about spooling, but I just told you quite, the idea of spooling. So the idea of spooling is making that printer that's normally dedicated, we make it appear as if it's shareable. And that's what we call virtual device. So if you ever hear the word virtual, it means not real, whatever it is. Not real shareable, or not real memory, or whatever it is, but we use it as if it is. And that improves performance as well, because there are many programs, they go and print one line and wait for it. No, you don't have to wait. If the printer is busy, is used by 3 other programs, you don't have to wait for them. We take it from you. We say, oh, you have a printer. But we put your stuff in buffer, in memory, and buffer is so fast. It works at speed of electrons. So it actually improved performance of all machines. And only when you say, I'm finished a page or I'm finished printing altogether, we say, okay, we'll start sending your stuff to the printer when the printer is free. The only little problem with it is that it will happen later. Don't expect, the printing to happen. Maybe there are 3 or 4 or 10 programs are printing ahead of you, but at least we did not delay you. You might start executing, send printing and finished, and your program terminated, but your printing has not even started yet. So it's possible in spooling is that your printing will happen 5 minutes later after you finish, or 10 minutes, or an hour, depending on, but that's because we have one printer and it's dedicated, but it's better than delaying you as well. So that's really how spooling works. So in spooling, multiple processes can send their request to print, and we keep all that printed material for each process in memory separately. And whenever the printer is free, we can send that stuff to the printer. But at least to the process that was printing, it didn't suffer any delay at all. So spooling is a very good idea, but it needs a lot of memory. It needs buffering. Buffering is used a lot, guys. Sometimes, for example, reading or writing to hard disk as well. Instead of writing to hard disk, when there are 20 programs writing to hard disk, we can take the stuff from you and say, oh, you want to write this? Okay, we'll write it. It's written. We tell you we've already written it. Maybe it hasn't even been written, still sitting in buffer. But soon the hard disk will be available and we'll send the material to be printed or sent to the file on the hard disk. They call this buffering. So if it's just you're using memory, buffer in memory, they call this buffering. Buffering is used for reading from a hard disk or writing. Imagine if you have a program. You say, read me, you're gonna read 1,000 records. You say, read me 1 record. Imagine you read 1 record from 1 student and then send it to the printer, right? And then you say, read me the next record and send it to the printer. Remember, every time you go to the hard disk, you have to wait, you have to spin, you have to find where the file is and pick that record. For example, it might take a second, just for argument's sake. It might take 1 second to read from a hard disk. But if I say, read me 1 record, come back, go and read again, or another record might take another second, another second, another second. So it might take 1,000 seconds. But instead, what operating systems do, anytime a program say to them, read me a record, you know what? They go to the hard disk, they read 100 records or 1,000 records. They bring them and put them in buffer. That's what they call buffering. Why? Because buffering is so fast. If they have a bit of buffer, it's great. Let's bring it from the hard disk. The hard disk is a mechanical, slow device. You don't want to keep going to that device. So now, when you give the program the first record, if the program says, get me the next record, you don't have to go to the hard disk anymore. You have it, you throw it to them at the speed of electrons. So you saved yourself, instead of going 1,000 times to the hard disk, you went once. It's like when you go to the shops up the road, you're going to buy a box of chocolate or a packet of chocolate. And they come back and they say, okay, I need to go and get some milk. And you go again, bring a bottle of milk.
So the developer is taking their memory cache.
Yeah. Thank you. So instead, is the time up? I thought you'd tell me 10 minutes before time is up, but okay.
I knew when I interrupted, it was interesting, sir.
I'll take that as a compliment, right? Okay, let me just finish this point, guys. So instead of you going to the shop 6 or 7 times, buying a pack of cigarettes, a bottle of milk, box of chocolate, whatever it is, no, you go once, you buy all this stuff, and you may not need it, or maybe you're living with friends, so they keep asking, but maybe your friend does not need it today, then that's a bit of a waste. But if they need it, you say, there it is. It's immediately available. That's exactly what we do when we read from files and we call it buffering. That means go and bring it from the hard disk and store it in the main memory. Who wants to leave first? Right, answer me this question and go. Name me 3 conditions required for a deadlock. Remember, deadlock needs 4 conditions for it to happen. Name 3 and go. No, wrong answer.
Mutual extraction.
Thank you. What's the first one? Mutual exclusive devices. That's number 1.
Resource holdings. Non-primitive.
You can go. Right, who's gonna give me the 3 conditions?
Resource handling. Mutual exchange.
Mutual exclusion.
Yeah. Resource handling. And
Resource holding.
holding.
Yeah.
And non-primitive.
Non-preemptiveness. Okay. And what's buffering for Spooling usually? Why? Okay, buffering is used to improve performance. You're moving things faster than main memory. You only go to the device once. We'll talk about it a bit more. That's how it's safe. Main memory is very, very fast. Hard disk is very, very slow. So instead of having to go to the hard disk 100 times, you go once and three. You may not have to and once they are finished, and they want to go